Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Kavinsky's Tutorials. Today I'm going to do a walkthrough, demo and review of Pure Strings by Instruments. So they're the same developers who did Pure Piano and Pure Upright. So this is available for iPhone and iPad. And the basic concept here is a nice, simple little app for doing string ensemble type sounds. Where you can morph between the different articulations. And it's got some quirky stuff as well, like a string machine, or this tape one, which sounds a bit pitched down maybe, slowed down. And then we have some short articulations, traditional ones, like a pizzicato. There's another non-traditional option there. So I'm just morphing between these. And we can change the order of all these by clicking here and dragging things around, right? So you can end up getting exactly the kind of combinations that you want. I'll just switch it back though to the main factory preset. So when we go to the short articulations, and articulation basically just means playing style, by the way, for anybody who doesn't know. So we go to the short articulations, we can also have arpeggiation if we want. So down here we've got a little button to turn on the arpeggiator, so that's that without the arpeggiation. And that's it with the arpeggiation. And again, by tapping this little pencil, we can change the note lengths for the arpeggios. So you just tap to cycle through those. And you can also change the arp type, or you got a downwards pattern, upwards and downwards. Manual, meaning it's just going to respect the order that you use to input the notes, and so on. So this is a sponsored video, by the way, so thanks a lot to Instruments for supporting my work. And as always, guys, in a sponsored video, I still give my honest opinions about apps. So I do really like this, but there are a few things that I think could be improved, and I will mention a few points where I think it could be improved as we go through the video and towards the end. So yeah, so the arpeggio only affecting the short articulations. So if I drag back out here, now we're back in the long ones. So that's really nice. Then you can get these combinations, where it's partly arped and partly not. So if we go through the factory presets, the first ones are just, for the morph points, so we can skip those. So let's try some of these. Now I do wish that there were forwards and backwards buttons to scroll through presets on the main UI. There is a preset system, but it's just a pop-up, and it basically obscures the whole UI. I really dislike it when apps don't have arrows to allow you to scroll. But I don't mind that much with this, because honestly I don't feel that it's the kind of thing that I would use presets on that much. It's very easy to dial in your own stuff. That's nice, right? The combination of pizzicato and tremolo. Excuse my throat, by the way. I don't have a sore throat, but my voice is a bit froggy today for some reason. That's nice, yeah. So there, for example, if we went in and changed the rate of the arp, we get a totally different vibe. I do wish, by the way, that this wasn't just a button that you just pressed to scroll through things. I'd far prefer it if there were all of the available options just here as separate buttons, and you could jump exactly to the one that you want. But of course, you can always use an external ARP as well if you want, although then you wouldn't be getting the mix of the ARP and the non-ARP unless you used 2 instances. Okay, let's go on to the next preset. So lovely sound, and I'll let you hear in a minute something kind of a bit more experimental. But before that, I'll actually let you hear E-Instruments' own little demo. They sent me a little video. They said, here, you can show this if you want. This is, whoops, brought off the wrong thing there. This is really nice demo. So I just pulled this little video player in here. Have a listen and just watch this. So here, everything is done by pure strings, except the synth bass and the percussion. Great. So I really had to think twice about playing that, you know, because it makes my own demos look very amateur in comparison. So let's just jump on to something slightly different here. So here, let me let you hear one thing I did. So what I did was I played around with the Morph Pad, and I recorded it into Gauss Looper, and I just pitched everything down. So what I recorded in was, you know, quite high pitched. So even though I've pitched it down, it doesn't sound very low, but it has that nice slowed down tape feel. And you can hear here this sort of morphing between those different things. And then I started playing around with putting a bit of filtering on that, here using Sculptor. Then we could add on some weird reverb. I've done videos on all these apps, by the way. Nice to add a little bit of revolve as well. I don't think it's needed on this though. So that's pretty enjoyable to play around with as well. Okay, let's look at this UI here. So there's another thing that I want to show you in this main view here, and that's this dynamic slider. So when you have this set to the middle, the dynamic slider is doing nothing, and it's just going to use the velocity of the notes that are being fed into the app. If you put this all the way up to the top, it will ignore that note input velocity completely, but it will play very loud. If you bring it all the way down to the bottom, it'll play very, very softly, and again, it will just completely ignore your input note velocities. But if you have it somewhere in the middle, let's say, then now it's going to be lower than the velocities you're playing, but it's still going to pay a bit of attention to those velocities. Put it up here, it's going to be higher than what you played, but it's still going to pay a bit of attention to them. So this is really enjoyable to play around with. And so you can also just, you know, use this live. And note, of course, that it's not just increasing volume, right? It's increasing brightness and probably all kinds of things. This, I should turn this up this bit too low. That's too high. So tap here, by the way, and you get the manual. At the moment, you can only read the manual in the app. I did say to the developers it'd be great if they put up a PDF on the website. I think people who don't have the app would also like to read the manual. Let me know what you think in the comments. Do you care about that? I care about that. Plus, I just find it more convenient, you know? This is not particularly easy to scroll through. And I can't play with the app while I'm looking at it, you know? So it's good that it has that in the app, but it shouldn't be the only option. So I'm going to put it onto one of the short articulations here. Let's try pizzicato. Try and remember which one that is. The images, it's not really completely obvious, is it, from the images? What's what? You have to get used to it. From the icons, I mean. Okay, so then clicking on the effects section. So here you can see we're at the moment viewing the equalizer. So this is very similar, identical, I think, to pure piano and pure upright. So here we just turn the EQ on or off. Here, we decide whether it's controlled by the Morph Pad or whether you can dial it in manually. So if it's controlled by the Morph Pad, when we move around here, it'll use the settings for the effects, because these will have different values set up. Some of them will use some of those effects, some won't. So if you want to actually tweak things, then you got to toggle that off. And then now we can adjust the lows, mids and highs there for the EQ. So I'll just leave that on, control by Morph Pad. And then click in here, we got the reverb. So again, if I want to adjust this, I got to toggle this off. And here we have reverb amount. And here you got to drag this horizontally. So controlling the length of the reverb tail. And here adjusting the damping. Let's just put that back to control by Morph Pad. Click on the next one, that's delay. So we can have synced or unsynced. So let's put on synced. And again, we got to turn this off. So first we got the amount of delay, and then here we adjust, just drag left or right to adjust the time. And here the feedback amount. That sounds nice, doesn't it? Lovely. So remember, if we go back into the Morph Pad now, you know, come down here, we're not really going to hear that delay. Then we come back up here and we've got this lovely delayed arpeggiation. It's really nice. Okay, I'll just turn that off again. So then we click here and we get this velocity response section. So this is good just to adjust things to your playing style. So you can set what the lowest velocity will be, so that even, you could set that very high so that even if you're playing softly, everything's going to be very loud, right? Or you could drag this highest value down so that, everything's going to be nice and quiet, even if you're playing very hard. And you can adjust the curve here. And you've got some ones already set up. So note that the soft one, it's actually set up in a way that it's going to be very easy to play hard. What soft means here is even if you play softly, it will be loud. It's kind of weird naming convention, I think. this is the opposite here. You're going to have to bang the keys very hard to get loud sounds. Even if you play with moderate pressure, it's going to be very quiet, or you can set everything at a fixed velocity. So let's just leave it on linear. Now, it's very easy to miss some things in this UI, I feel, because, you know, you have these three things here, and it's very easy to miss that. So here you've got the master tuning, and it just goes in increments of hertz, and it goes down to 432, and it goes up to 454, I think it is, yeah. And unfortunately, there's no tapping, so you got to just press again and again to get it back down. Also, all the increments are just in hertz. There's no decimals or anything. Then you got a transpose option here as well in semitones. Not to be used live there, here we do a little bit of clicking. And here you can decide whether it is equal tuning or stretched, equal being the better option if you're playing along with other instruments. You're stretched for a richer sound if you're playing solo. Then you have here this Sordino button. So that just means with mute, and it just gives you this muted sound. And you can trigger that with a CC, by the way. We'll talk about that in a minute. And then here you tap on this little mixer thing, and you've got sliders for the attack and release values. So let me just show you with a keyboard maybe for this. Okay. And let's go back here and just go into the middle. All right. Well, I don't want settings, no. Okay, so just bring down the attack and release times. Right? And let's try those both up very high. Beautiful. Double tap to reset to default. These can also be controlled by CC numbers. If we tap on settings, we have here some voice mode options. So here you choose minimum, eco mode, optimal, and maximum. So basically, if you're finding this hard on your CPU, you're probably going to want to try minimum or eco. You won't be able to play as many notes of polyphony, but it won't be as hard on your DSP meter. And if you've got a lot of juice in your device, just put it up to max and you'll get the maximum polyphony that you can. So let's just put that up to max. And what else we got here? So here you've got a volume control, liquid morph. So again, you can turn this off if you want. What this just means is if liquid morph is on, when we morph, let's go back to the morph section. Okay. Here, when we morph, the morphing will happen even on notes that are currently being sustained. If you turn that liquid morph off, it won't do that. It will only apply after it'll only apply to new notes. Let me show you. Yeah. Well, God, I would definitely still making some changes to the sustained notes. Hadn't even tried that. I thought I understood how it worked. I definitely wouldn't keep that liquid morph off, I think. Yeah. So let's put it back on again. Liquid morph on. Okay. So dynamics control. So if this is turned on, you can use this slider, right, the dynamic slider, to control the dynamics. If you instead want to use CC1 to control dynamics, then turn this off. Right? Now here you can set which MIDI channels it's sending out on, and you can factory reset everything. So turn this off, and let's see. Let me change this here. So do you see here now, I'm using Sequence AU keys, this very handy little touchscreen keyboard. And now here I'm just adjusting the modulation with this. Now, one really cool little thing about sequence keys for this is I can change the mode here, and I can snap it to this one, this gated mode, and listen to what this can do. Now I can tap here to jump to points, to jump to values. And what it does is basically allows you to do gating on the fly instead of using some sort of sequenced gating app. If I tap up here, I'm getting still some of the ungated signal coming through. But if I tap all the way at the bottom, it's like full on-off, very abrupt. That's really nice to play with, isn't it? So then what do we got? So here we can control, let me just reduce the size of this. So control the X position. And the Y position. And here, sustain if you don't have a sustain pedal. Very handy. And here we can control attack and release. And you can control that Sordino. You hear that's much brighter. So let me bring those back up. And pitch wheel, pitch bend. Okay, so just don't forget to turn this off if you want to do that. Otherwise, I've noticed getting some weird audio effects, and I think it's when I try to do that when this isn't off, I think that's what's causing it. So I think we've looked at all of the controls of the app here. So I'll just finish off with a few little pointers about things that I think could be improved. So the first thing I'd like to see really would be, you have all these controls that you can send CC messages into, but it would be really nice if those were just part of the UI instead of having to use sliders on a third-party app like this. When I'm trying to perform this on a touch screen, I could do all of it within the app. For example, this Morph Pad could probably be smaller, and maybe you could have some sliders in here, or there could be maybe another part of the UI that's just full of sliders for controlling these type of things. What I'd also really love is if this had an MPE keyboard in it. This would be so suitable for MPE because you could do per note pitch bands and stuff, but you could also assign different things to the y-axis. For example, maybe it'd be really cool to have something like the trilling effect. Have like the speed of that, for example, being controlled on the y-axis of your keys. So I did mention this to the developers, and they said, well, we think very few people are using MPE controllers. But the point I made is a touchscreen is very good for a limited version of MPE. So maybe you don't have pressure sensitivity like you would on a dedicated hardware MPE controller like a Instrument or Rolly Seaboard, but you can still play very expressively on touchscreen MPE keyboards. So I'd really, really love to see this become an MPE. But as long as you're aware that you're not going to be able to do those per note pitch bends and stuff, it's still very fun to play around with this. Still capable of some great sounds. So let me know what you think in the comments, and thanks a lot for watching, everybody, and I'll see you in the next video. Take it easy.